Serious, lawyers, what's a case you regretted winning? Family law is a little different in that you never really win per se. You may get more favorable rulings or better terms, but unless the opposing party did something illegal or mind-bogglingly stupid, it's never a decisive win really. Although I did have a case where my client fought really hard for the dog, and then ended up turning him over to a shelter. Ducking asshole. The ex-wife received an anonymous tip and was able to get him back quickly. So the fight wasn't even for the dog, it was just to take something she loved away from her. Jesus, divorce really can bring out the absolute worst in people. A professor in law school said, as a criminal defense attorney you'll see bad people on their best behavior, and in family law you'll see good people on their worst behavior. Having handled both types of cases, I can say that this is totally true. Estates can be really bad too. People will screw over and destroy family relationships of such petty amounts of money. I saw how badly my dad and his siblings behaved when my grandmother passed. It was unreal. These people who supposedly love each other were acting beyond hateful. And it's not like it was some large amount of money. I think all told the estate was valued at around $200,000. I've seen it happen for less than $10,000. As a personal injury attorney, I've seen a few clients win the blue-collar lotto or getting more money than they reasonably know how to deal with. I do my best to educate them, but my job is to try and maximize their recovery, not teach them finance. I have definitely contributed to a few drug habits. As a personal injury attorney, do you still represent them if you think they are faking? That's a reasonable question. The answer is that I'm not a doctor. I refer people to doctors I trust. If I don't think a doctor is being honest, then I won't work with that person anymore. I do have one client that I have refused to represent again because I'm not sure he isn't causing accidents on purpose. Thanks for the reply. The one where the client never paid. Edit, clarification explanation. When I was a young associate, I was assigned to do a civil commercial trial for a client that was not happy with the senior partner. He stopped paying. We moved to withdraw. The court refused to allow us to withdraw and forced us to go to trial. Spent a significant amount of time in trial prep, etc. I win the trial. Client never pays. Client's position was that my boss screwed up the deal and that there never should have been a dispute trial to begin with. Firm policy prohibits us from suing clients because that causes a drastic increase in malpractice premiums. 9 times out of 10 if you sue a client for non-payment, they will countersue for malpractice. I was in for jury selection a few years back, and they were doing a voir dire of a business attorney in the box. You don't do any criminal work, correct? No, mostly real estate law. Okay, so what do you know about the practice of criminal law? Get the money in advance. I think it was Preet Bharara who said recently one of his professors had 3 rules for criminal law. 1. Get the money in advance. 2. If someone goes to jail, make sure it isn't you. 3. Get the money in advance. Not just for lawyers. I did some tech consulting work, I spent weeks on it and was only paid half the contract. I stayed up all hours getting the thing working to meet a deadline. I learned not to work past the invoices. The second one is not paid, you stop until it is. I think I lost over $10,000 on that. An expensive lesson. Write it off as a loss and send them an income statement at the end of the year. They now owe taxes on that $10K. Don't forget to send copies to the IRS and their state tax authority. Did a divorce where the husband, who I was representing, wanted to trade custody of his children for a set of bedroom furniture. The bedroom furniture was not even like a family heirloom. It was furniture that you could probably get at a Rooms To Go or something. Still makes me ill. That's why I got out of family law. Edit, I'd honestly like to thank all of you for your various points of view on this particular pain point in my career. For the record, yes, I did win that particular point, but it did not fill me with any joy. But, those who said that it was probably for the best, perhaps you're right. Thank goodness he fought for the furniture and not the kids, if that's the kind of dad he would be. Choosing objects over his children. I'm willing to bet Dad never wanted the children and only pretended to want them so he could use them as a bargaining chip for other concessions. Prosecuted a murder case. 21-year-old kid starts dating an older guy's ex-girlfriend. The older guy, real roughneck, loose connections with a local biker gang, was going all over his small town talking about how he was going to kick the kid's ass. The older guy sends some nudes of the ex while he's getting drunk at a bar, so the kid says something smartass in response. Older guy comes to the kid's house to fight him. The kid shoots him once, and the older guy dies. Jury didn't buy self-defense or castle doctrine. Convicted of voluntary manslaughter. 20 years. Burned up his appeals with no luck. I have a son about the kid's age. I could totally imagine him doing the exact same things if he were in a similar situation. Shit's going to haunt me until I die. No doubt about it. Started thinking about other work the moment the verdict came back. Wow. The guy threatened the kid, came into his house uninvited, drunk, for the purpose of causing him bodily harm, and the kid was convicted of manslaughter? That's insane. There must be some important details that we're missing here. Edit, getting a lot of conjecture and political soapboxing here. No, it wasn't a blue state, I was wrong, the biker never entered the younger guy's home. Apparently the younger guy had words with him over the phone, a text, and told him to try it or come and get some or the such, basically starting shit with the drunk guy, and then met him outside his house and shot him in the yard. Dude basically set a trap. Manslaughter makes more sense now. Insane, but it happened. And, yes, there are some details left out, but that's pretty much the guts of the case. Woman wanted her daughter custody. We used the state preference about custody going to the mother, judge bias, her improved economical situation, and some minor garbage like her grades and discipline problems at school to discredit the dad. Not even a month after we won, the mother calls and says she had a problem. Then she explains the problem was that her BF raped the girl, and after that she had the gall to ask we pick up his defense. One of the things that made me quit to gov work. That poor girl. Her mother has totally failed her. Guy lost his wife and children in a car accident. He wanted to exercise to get his emotions and mental health back in check. Doctor wrote him recommendations for exercise equipment, ball, chin-up bar, nothing crazy, and he submitted the expenses for same to his insurer. Client, insurer adjuster, wanted this fought tooth and nail because exercise equipment was only covered for physical rehab and he was not physically injured. I do not practice in this area anymore. There was a case that I saw that involved a claim with fee shifting, meaning that if the plaintiff won, their attorney's fees would get paid by the defendant. Defendant pushed an aggressive legal position at trial that the judge agreed with, and won, avoiding a few thousand in liability to the plaintiff and a few thousand in attorney's fees. So far so good. But then the plaintiff appeals all the way to the state's high court, requiring a ton of briefing and time. High court agrees with plaintiff, reverses and sends back to the trial court, which now enters judgment against the defendant for a few thousand in damages against the plaintiff and tens of thousands of dollars in attorney's fees from the appeal. The defense lawyer probably regretted winning at first on that aggressive argument to the trial court. I can see the logic of moving a defendant's fees to the plaintiff but not the plaintiff's fees to a defendant. Doesn't that give a rich plaintiff incentive to throw money at a court case until the defendant gives up? The fee shifting typically happens in breach of contract cases, where services have already been tendered, suits on a sworn account, performed labor, or where otherwise statutorily allowed, such as the Deceptive Trade Practices Act in Texas. The main policy behind these rules are to shift a burden on the defendant to encourage a settlement of the claim instead of risking to take on the extra expense of attorney's fees for the opposing parties. The situations in which these statutes apply are rather limited and occasionally have stringent requirements to recover fees, and many times a judge will reduce the total amount of the fees to be paid by the defendant. In one of my first cases after passing the bar exam, a young man retained me on a drunk driving charge. No one was hurt, but he totaled his car. During trial, the arresting police officer testified that my client was clearly drunk at the accident scene, and that my client was loudly blaming the accident on the ducking asshole who stole his car, crashed it, and then fled before the cops arrived. However, according to two other witness statements tendered into evidence, it was my client's friend, the passenger, who was screaming about the asshole who stole the car, not my client, the driver. The cop must have confused the two men during his testimony. This discrepancy raised a reasonable doubt in the judge's mind, so she acquitted my client. At the time, the acquittal was somewhat unexpected for me. In my personal view, my client was clearly drunk and responsible for the accident, regardless of who was blaming the mystery asshole to the cops, but I was happy my young client got off, no one was hurt, and lessons were learned. And I was quite euphoric to have won my first criminal case. The regret? About a month after the acquittal, my young client called me at 3 a.m. from the police station saying it's me again. The police arrested me for drunk driving again. Can you help me? Not only did I answer no, I instantly regretted getting the earlier acquittal. My client apparently didn't learn any lessons. That didn't end nearly as badly as I thought it would. I was expecting him to have killed somebody while drunk driving. For all I know, his new accident could have ended badly. But I got no real details from him, as I immediately referred him to another lawyer. I had already decided not to take on any more criminal cases given my unpleasant experience with a young offender I was representing at the time. Dude sure knew how to play the system, I'll give him that. I wasn't going to change my mind about taking on criminal law cases for drunk driving boy.